755 is Real with David O'Brien and Eric O'Flaherty is on the air now.
Hello and welcome into the latest edition of 755 is Real. Producer Cam here with you. We'll keep this brief. David and Eric hosted a late night live room on Monday discussing Austin Riley's massive historic contract extension with the Braves. They also discussed some of the trade deadline rumors and questions that fans had who attended the live room. Also, at the end of the podcast, news was broke. Will Smith traded for Jake Odorizzi. The guys reacted to that momentarily. If you aren't already, make sure you're subscribed to 755 is Real on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get the podcast. Also, if you aren't subscribed to The Athletic, now's the perfect time to do so with all of our MLB trade deadline coverage. $1 a month for 6 months, a perfect deal. All you have to do is go to theathletic.com/755isreal. And thank you all so much for tuning in as always. Here's David and Eric.
What's up, Robert?
How's it going, guys? First of all, this is what a day for the Braves. What a day for the Braves. I was going to ask, when Yates comes back, do you guys think there's any chance that Will Smith gets bumped, or do you guys think? I've heard Dylan Lee's name thrown around. I don't see how you could possibly send him back. I'm just curious on your thoughts on that.
No, I think he rides out his 3-year, $40 million contract. I don't see them after what he did in the postseason and down the stretch last year. I can't see any way that they would release him and then have him go pitch for another team while the Braves are paying that down the stretch. I mean, even if people don't like him or whatever, they also didn't like him at this time last year when he was closing and making every save an adventure. But then everybody loved him beginning that last week of the season or last 2 weeks when he had that bases loaded situation in San Diego, started a roll there that didn't stop until the World Series was over. So I can't see him releasing a guy making that much money who's done that for him in the past, as bad as he's been in some of his recent appearances.
Yeah, I agree. Thanks, Robert. Lucas T.
Hey, David and Eric. How are y'all?
What's up, man? How are you?
Doing well. We've seen kind of time and time again over like last year, all of those trade deadline pickups that we had. None of those were the top dollar trading block pieces that we hear talked about constantly. Like this year, it's Soto, it's Ohtani, it's Ariano, all of those type groups. And I keep wondering, is there going to be an AA move of just someone completely entirely off the radar that we get from cash considerations that's going to be a huge pickup for us down the stretch? Is there just anyone completely off the radar that y'all think might appear kind of the way that Rosario appeared last year off the radar, or anything else? I know that's a very vague and ambiguous question, but just was interested in hearing.
Well, I mean, by nature, if it's completely off the radar like Rosario was when he was on the DL, we certainly weren't thinking they were going to be trading for a guy with slumping, and then on the DL, and a guy with Soler was hitting under 200. It wasn't until after they made the deal that we all looked a little deeper into the numbers and realized the last 9 or 10 games there, he did some home runs and was doing a lot better. But, I mean, those are the kind of things that really you'd have to go through the entire league with a fine-tooth comb right now and try to find somebody like that. And, you know, and quite honestly, even Alex would even admit everybody he got kind of surpassed all expectations. It was just kind of magical last year. So, Rich Rodriguez, it was so good with those 4 outfielders that people forget how bad Rich Rodriguez was after those first 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And then he was left off the postseason roster. And that was kind of probably the most significant deal they did at the deadline, other than maybe Duvall, And Duvall wasn't really doing that much with Miami at the time, but so I don't know if that answers your question. But
it's funny.
Any of the big guys because they just don't have the minor league system right now that's stocked enough to get those guys. That teams want multiple prospects or young players off your team, and if you're a contending team, you're not going to trade young players off your team like Spencer Strider or Michael Harris or anybody like that. So, they don't have the prospects to get the really, really elite guys that are available. But I could see him pulling off a deal for a guy that could be a major pickup for the stretch, like an Ian Happ. That would be a really big deal. Or maybe Drury, or even Michael A. Taylor, who's got like a career high 108 OPS plus this year and plays great defense. That would be a big addition for the Braves potentially.
Yeah, that is. I love that you mentioned the Eddie on the IL piece. I actually searched the league, looked through the league IL just to see where AA might pull some crazy magic this time around.
And remember what they got him for. Pablo Sandoval, who Cleveland just dumped as soon as they got him.
Can we sign Pablo?
Eddie was nothing but a salary dump.
Yeah, it's almost like, can we sign Pablo Sandoval just to dump him off on somebody?
Yeah, I mean, Eddie, really, the Braves had better expectations for him than anybody else did, including Cleveland.
Yeah. Well, love the show. Thank y'all for taking the question.
Yep. Thanks, Lucas. I'm on board with what you're saying, Dave. It's, off the radar, you're not going to see. And I don't know. I mean, you'd have to comb through the whole league to try to find somebody like that. And we're not getting paid enough to do it.
Yeah. I mean, I can't find the Eddie Rosario that's out there right now.
Yeah. If it was my job, if I was Alex, I'm sure I could find him. But that's hours and hours and hours of work and research.
It's James pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing they did it last year, considering how many people from every team are writing about them online and shit. Like, all the blogs and all the fan blogs and fan websites and all that. I mean, everybody is covering teams, and you would think that, like last year, Rosario would have gotten out there at least, hours before that the Braves were interested, but I don't remember anybody having that until it happened.
Yeah, well, you never expect a guy on the DL to have any trade value, honestly. I mean,
he's not even having a good year.
Unless it's DeGrom on the DL, but Rosario on the DL, you're thinking, he could probably slip him through waivers when he comes back or something, but you're not expecting him to get traded at the deadline.
Really, and it was and like I said, it was a salary dump because they had no use for Pablo. They just agreed to take him and then dump him.
Yep. James B.
Hey guys, so my question was, especially after the Raleigh contract, how do you really think we navigate not only Swanson but then in a couple of years Fried? Because I know we got a good AAV on pretty much everybody, but in terms of navigating that, do you think Swanson's realistic, especially going into a contract year when he's an all-star and all that stuff?
I wouldn't be if I was him.
Oh no, I would love to have him there, but
it complicates
he might have priced this out.
No, I see what you're saying.
It complicates it the year that he's having. You can't hit on every one of them and get below market contracts. I mean, that's four that I would have you. I mean, without going through every team, I would guess that there's not another team that has two team-friendly deals as good as the Braves have four now, and I'm including Olsen with that, which is a really team-friendly deal when you look at it. I mean, you're talking about four guys in Acuna, Ozzie especially, who never makes more than $7 million in his contract, which is just ludicrous. Now Austin, who never makes more than $22 million in his deal, and Olsen, who never makes more than $22 million in his deal. Acuna never makes more than $17 million. And that's at a time when guys are making $35 to $40 million now, and it's only going up. I mean, in another 5 years, when those guys are making a combined $68 million from the Braves, for those four guys, there are going to be a lot of players making between $35 and $42 million a year.
Ohtani's going to be making 50.
Yeah, I mean, so I think it puts the Braves. I mean, the Braves are only going to raise their payroll. They've pretty much not promised it, but they've said they're going to do it, and they have done it. Since coming back from the pandemic. This year they're up to $178 million, franchise record, and they say it's going to keep going up. They're at about between 8 and 10 right now, depending on who's ranking the payrolls. But they say they're going to be top 5 before much longer. If they get up closer to 200, I would say that having this cost control they have on these 4 guys long term, not to mention Michael Harris, who's going to have 6 years of contractual control and will be really affordable for at least 4 or 5 of those. I would say it gives them a better chance of signing at least Fried. Dansby, like for the reasons you've mentioned, is harder because he's taking all the risk and he's having a career year, and the Braves can't expect him to take the big hometown discount, I don't think. But
and I think part of it with Swanson is our farm system can't support a brand new starting shortstop.
Not
And
for
with
sure.
Fried, we have a strong pitching staff. Like, I mean, obviously you can't replace him, but there is some backup in that regard.
Well, Grissom's coming in a couple of years. Grissom's, and you could have a bridge guy to him. I could see Alex overpaying a veteran shortstop for 1 year to be a bridge to Grissom if he wants to go that route. I could definitely see that happening.
Yeah.
But people that think they're going to swap Dansby for Trey Turner, Trey Turner's going to make more than Dansby.
Yeah.
Probably significantly more.
Yeah, I think, there's a difference, and that's why Austin signed the deal he did. I mean, agents get mad at you. The union will kind of, have some attitude about it. But when you're a player, an agent has a pool he's gambling on. The union has a pool they're gambling on. When you're a player, you have one person you're gambling on, and it's 50-50. Either you do it or you don't in the right years and get that contract. Dansby's taken all this risk. He's gotten to the point where he's now 2 months away from probably signing a pretty crazy deal, and so it's going to cost a lot more to sign him than. I mean, he's going to be asking for 2025 as a all-star shortstop having his best year. I mean,
as a 25 to 30 homer guy at shortstop who plays Gold Glove caliber defense.
Yeah,
and he's worth it. I mean, he's going to get. Yeah. But I would argue with the Braves that they should make an offer similar to what they made Austin, maybe a couple of years less because Dansby is 20. What is he? 28? Is he that old yet? I think he is. Because he was a college guy. I think he's 28. So that's 3 years older than Austin. So
yeah, he's 28.
He's what, 28?
Yep.
Yeah, so I wouldn't go 10 years with him, but I'd make a 7 or 8 year offer worth more than 20 a year for him. He's worth that. But on the other hand, the Braves know their guys better than anybody, and Grissom is a stud, man. He's rising quickly, and you can only you got to sprinkle in some young, affordable guys when you have them, and they got a chance with him, like they did with Michael Harris. Instead of going out and getting a center fielder. They stuck with Michael Harris, and now look at him. So I could see it going either way. On the other hand, Max Fried is still a couple of years away from free agency, and now's the time to make him that offer. And I think you could get him, at his age, with the injuries he's had in the past, Tommy John, some other nagging stuff. I think you could get him on maybe a little less than he'd hit on the open market and less than what people think he might get. Because if you're Max Fried and you love it here, getting an offer of $150 million when you've gone through that's got to look mighty good, man. When you're approaching free agency in a couple of years and you're going to be 30 years old and you've gone through what he has, I could see him taking an affordable. And if I'm the Braves, I'd try to get him signed because he's an ace you can have for the next 5-6 years while he's still in his peak.
Yeah, and he takes great care of himself. I think it's with pitchers, it's definitely more of a risky move. Just because you have one limb that you're counting on. With position players, you roll an ankle and maybe you're not as mobile, but you still got your power at the plate. You're still a good defender. With a pitcher, if you have a serious arm injury or shoulder surgery or something, if that thing blows out, especially Max has already had it. He's already sat and I think he was an A-ball at the time and wondered if his arm's going to be the same and done the year-long rehab. So I think you definitely have a better chance at getting a pitcher to take that discount contract or team-friendly contract, whatever you want to call it, just because there's got to be a different mindset when you're just one pitch and you could be feeling great that day, nothing nagging you, and you feel a pop, and there goes $150 million.
You look at a guy like Brandon Beachy or a guy like Medlin, who was never the same after he, you want to take that money if you got a chance to make 9 figures, man. That's hard to leave out there as a pitcher, knowing how, like you said, you're one pitch away from everything turning upside down. Whereas Acuna blows out his knee, and he's scared about it, but there's a really good chance he's going to come back at 100%, from knee surgery when you're
right.
And he's got so many other tools and gifts that he's going to be great again. But also, while we're on the subject, man, we all kind of poo-pooed and laughed about, or some people laughed at Acuna for leaving $100 million on the table or whatever when he did. But How about if this knee injury had happened the year that he signed that, after with less than 1 year service time? Right now, at least he's got that money. He's guaranteed $100 million, whatever happens. If he were, God forbid, blow out again, you just never know. So,
or even if the guy that he's been since he's come back from it is who he stays to, who he is now. That's the other side of the risk, is that maybe you come back from the injury, but your production's never the same. So when your stock could never be higher, maybe you are technically taking a discount, but there's a lot of stuff that can go south in a career.
And you got 9 figures in the bank, man.
I don't ever get mad at anybody. I'd be the worst agent ever, but I don't get mad at any guy that decides to set himself up for life playing baseball.
No shit. And there's 2 different schools of thought, obviously, with agents. You got your BB Abbotts and you got your Scott Borases at the extremes. You got Abbott, who's going to try to get his player in a place he's most comfortable on the best deal he can get there, which is what he did with Matt Olson, coming home. Olson made it clear he'd love to sign here long term, and he did it. He could have probably got another $50 million if he'd have waited, till he hit free agency. But he didn't want that. He wanted to be here. And then you got Boras. Scott's going to get the absolute highest dollar he can get, more than 9 times out of 10 for his clients.
And what changes if he doesn't? He's got so many guys. He's made so much money. He, as an agent, can afford to take that gamble himself.
Right. So Boras sees a guy like Riley take this contract tonight.
He's pissed.
Oh, yeah.
He threw up. I guarantee you he threw up when he saw it.
Just like he was when Ozzie took his, and especially when Acuna took his. Yep. He just looks at it as, what are they doing? What are their agents doing? They're leaving,
I'm not mad at those guys at all.
Yeah, Riley could have got a lot more if he'd willing to take this thing all the way to free agency, and he kept doing what he's doing right now. But if you're Austin Riley and you grew up the way you did, middle class, upper middle class guy, you don't need a fortune. You don't have to have the most of everything. You're a guy that likes to hunt in the off season. You don't have 7 cars. You already got married. What in the hell, man? $212 million and $232 if they pick up the option, which they're going to do if he keeps hitting. That's so much money, man.
Yeah. It's hard to really keep the perspective on that, but a lot of guys do. They sign these deals, and the same way anybody that's doing any job in life, if you got offered $212 million, they jump out of their chair and say, I just got $212 million. And it's really people outside of that situation that'll criticize you. But I understand the union standpoint of trying to get everybody the best deal. And I understand the agents trying to do their job and keep the price going up for everybody. But I never blame a player, because when you're going through it, all the risk. You've felt bad. You've had bad seasons. You've had bad slumps that you said, maybe I never get out of. I have the ultimate respect for a guy like Dansby that can gamble on himself, because it takes so much balls to do. But I'm never mad at the guys that are like, shit, I'm set for life if I just sign on this paper and take it.
A little over 15 months ago, Austin Riley was getting people were questioning Snit about how long can you carry Austin Riley when he hadn't had an extra base hit yet. That was 15 months ago, and now he's got $212 million guaranteed.
Yeah, and he still remembers that feeling. He still remembers those struggles.
Yeah, so that's a hell of a deal. There's other agents and players union are going to look at it as $21.2 million a year average annual value when he could have got 25 at least. But that's not the way a guy like him's going to look at it, and I certainly can't blame him. The long-winded answer, I think it gives him a better chance of re-signing either or Max Fried and Dansby, having the cost certainty that they have now, when the most they're ever going to pay those 4 players in 1 year is $68 million combined. That's like 1.5. That's like 2 of the elite players on some teams. Making $30 million a year.
Well, and they had to factor in those future moves when they were trying to sign Dansby and trying to make it's all part of the equation. So knowing what they're getting Austin probably helps them sign Dansby if they're going to do it.
And also now you've got you got Austin signed up for a decade. It limits now Grissom, because you could have before talked about moving him off short. He may eventually need to move off short because he's a big guy, not big and slow, just a big guy. But they've A-Rod, Ripken, there's some guys his size at short. But you do not have the option now of moving him to third base. So
nope, and right
shortstop or not. or outfield, shortstop or outfield, but he's too gifted, I think, in the infield to think about moving to the outfield.
It says in our chat here that the Braves traded Will Smith to the Astros for Jake Odorizzi. So that answered another question.
Yep. There you go. Late night deal going down.
We got for a couple more. Kelly F.
Hey, I'm here.
All right. We got one.
I'm glad y'all mentioned Max just a second ago because I loved watching Monday night's game where Snit went out to get him and then he let him finish the inning. Because I just haven't watched, obviously, the Horsemen we had in the 90s, the concept of a quality start, and both from pitcher and writer Dave, is that something that's even valued anymore, is considering a quality start?
I don't know that pitchers worry too much about that because if you got a quality start, every time out went 6 innings, 3 runs.
Yeah.
You're looking at a 4.5 ERA for the year. So if you throw 200 innings, that's a good season. But more than anything, I think pitchers still care way more about wins. They care a lot more about wins than people give them credit for. Guys like to see that record next to their name, 15-5, or if they're 5-15 and they have a 2.7 ERA, they're pissed. I don't think quality starts. I think it's a good indicator that you're going out and giving your team innings, but I don't think too many pitchers put an extreme amount of value on that.
Yeah, and then I loved listening when you had Colin on the other day. I really enjoyed listening to guys like him who you don't realize the journey they've gone through in the majors. And glad he's on our side now. But, I enjoyed listening to him the other day. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, he was great.
Really
Thank you.
Really informative. Colin was great.
All right, that's going to do it for the live room. Thank you to all who tuned into the live room, and thank you all for listening as well. This was a quick hitter reacting to revelatory news with the largest contract in Atlanta Braves history. Austin Riley inked for 10 more years. Big moment in club history. If you aren't already, make sure you subscribe to 755 is Real on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get the show. It's as important now as ever, especially with the trade deadline, because you'll receive notifications when new shows release when you are subscribed on those platforms. And you want to stay abreast with all the latest information about the Braves and David and Eric's insight into the team. Make sure you're subscribed. As always, thank you all so much for tuning in. We couldn't keep this show up without you. We really appreciate it. 755 is Real's out.